Hello children, we are going to start with our first chapter for class 8, crop production and management from science. In this lesson we are going to study about the crops, about the types of crops and about how agricultural practices helped make the availability of food grain on a large scale for all of us. So first let us begin with our word crop. Now what do we mean by crop? A crop is when plants of same kind are cultivated at one place on a large scale. Now how did we come to this? Because earlier people used to hunt and move from one place to other for the search of food. But nowadays we don't require to move. We are not nomadic any longer. Why? Because we started cultivating, we started agriculture. And this agriculture was nothing but production of food grain on a large scale, and this food grain is what is called as crop. Till 10,000 BCE people were nomadic. Now see, nomadic, what do we mean by nomadic? The people when they move from one place to another in search of food, it is called as nomadic. Later when people started understanding that the crops can be cultivated so that the food grain could be created, so that they don't need to move from one place to another. If they like the place, they would settle down there and then grow the crops and live there happily. So that is what is crops. Now crops doesn't mean just food grains or just wheat, jawar, bajra and all those things. Crop means anything that is grown on the large scale. If you plant one tree, that's not a crop, that's just a plant. But if you have multiple plants or multiple trees of the same kind, then it would be called as crop. Now here in India we have different crops based on the season. Now which are they? We have Kharif crops and Rabi crops. Now what do we mean by Kharif crops and Rabi crops? Kharif crops are the crops which are sown in rainy season. When there is a lot of rain, means these crops require lots of water. That is why they are sown in rainy season. Basically June to September is the rainy season in India. Therefore these crops are grown in that season. It's paddy, that is rice, maize, soya bean, groundnut, cotton. All these are Kharif crops. They are sown in rainy season only, not in any other season. Then we have Rabi crops. Now what do we mean by Rabi crops? Rabi crops are the crops which are grown in winter season, that is October to March. That means they don't require much of a water, but they require coolness of climate for them to grow properly. And these are wheat, gram, pea, mustard and linseed. These are Rabi crops. Now if you notice that the plants are grown from June to September and October to March. In between we have April, May as a blank season. But earlier, because it was summer season, the plants were not really grown. But nowadays, because of the irrigation facilities, they are grown, and those type of crops are called as Zayt crops. Alright, it's not there in the textbook, it's an additional information just to store away. So those are Zayt crops, and they are watermelon and all those kind of fruits that you get in the summer season. Those are Zayt crops. Now basic practices of crop production. What all things are done to grow the crop? Here there are few basic steps. They are first preparation of soil, then we have sowing, adding manure and fertilizers, irrigation, protection from weeds, harvesting, storage. Now here the word preparation of the soil, the first step towards agriculture, is given as preparation of soil. Why do we need to prepare the soil? Just as we prepare for exam, the soil also has to be prepared for the sowing of seeds. And how do we do that? Actually it is nothing but plowing. They plow the ground so that the top soil and the bottom soil, the top soil is generally without any growing capacity. That is why it is turned over, and after this turning over, the bottom soil, the ground soil, the lower soil, which has lot of fertility, comes up, so that the soil gets mixed up and everything is properly done. So then the loosening of soil is also important. This preparation of the soil involves loosening. How do we loosen? We plow the field, and when we plow the field, what happens is we are mixing the soil as well as we are getting the clumps of soil separated, and because it is separated, the soil becomes a little looser, and when we sow the seed in such loosened soil, the roots find it easier to take to go into the soil, and it's easier for the root to take in, and then it moves along, and then it's nicely done, and the plant is growing properly because of the loosened soil. The roots are taking in. And then we have living organisms. In addition, dead plants, animals get decomposed by soil organisms. In this way, various nutrients in the dead organisms are released back into the soil. These nutrients are again absorbed by the soil. Now these are also important. All the animals that are dying, the insects, all these things are nothing but manure, and these things have to be mixed up in the soil. They are on the top part, and therefore the roots are in the ground, and the roots require these nutrients from all the dead and decaying things. So that is why again the mixing of soil comes into action. It's required there. Then how do we do this process of loosening and turning the soil? It's called as tilling or plowing. Now that was plowing. Nowadays we have a new instrument called as a hoe. What does this hoe do? It's basically the same thing. It's a simple tool which is used for removing weeds and for loosening the soil. It has a long rod of wood or iron. A strong, broad and bent plate of iron is fixed on one of its ends and works like a blade. It is pulled by animals. Now this is nothing but modern version of plow. So it's a hoe. After that we again have a thing called cultivator. Now cultivator is something that is fixed to the rear end of a tractor, and then it's again moved along, and therefore the soil gets loosened and you get your field plowed properly, and the soil is loosened for the preparation of the soil for the next step, that is sowing. Now when we sow the seeds, traditionally the bullocks and the sow drill, sowing is done using the funnel, a kind of a thing, and then they sow it with the hand or sometimes using some simple basic instruments. So that's how sowing was done earlier. But nowadays we have a thing called seed drill. Now this seed drill is nothing but the seed is put under the soil and then it's closed again. What does it do? This sows the seed uniformly at equal distance. Now why this distance is required? Because each plant requires to take in root. Now these roots require a certain amount of space. If seeds are sown close to one another, the roots may get entangled or roots may not get proper nutrients. That's why they have to be sowed at an equal distance. And this distance is maintained by this modern instrument called as a seed drill. And this seed drill sows the seed at equal distance, uniform distance, and ensures that the seed is again covered with soil. Earlier seeds were sown by hand and then covered with soil again, so it required a lot of manual labor. But nowadays it's not so. You could easily do it with the help of the machinery that is helpful for the farmers. So this seed drill is one of those. That's all for now. Thank you and have a good day.